I'm Tony, and today we're going to make a diagonal pill block. You may have seen the other pill block, but it was a straight-on pill block. But what if you want a diagonal one? Unfortunately, you can't just turn the other one. You do have to have a whole new pattern for the diagonal one. So I made a whole new pattern. So I'm going to show you step by step by step how we're going to do this. Remember, if you don't have this pattern yet, it is only $2. You can buy it from my website. The link is down below. And let's get sewing. Step number 1, we want to print out our instructions. So the main thing, now you don't have to print this out, but I like to print it out because I like to mark on here after I've cut all the pieces. If you're printing, you definitely want to print out the second page, which is all of your cutting instructions. But you have to print out this page. That's what foundation paper piecing is all about, is using the paper. So this is page number 8 in your instructions. Make sure you print this out, and I've printed mine on special foundation paper piecing paper. It is a little bit lighter, it's easier to use, and it's easier to take out whenever your block is finished. You can use regular printer paper if you are new to foundation paper piecing, or if you just don't want to use the special paper, that is also totally fine. If you're interested in the paper though, I do have a link down below to take a look at. After you've printed this out, let's make sure that our sizing is correct. So you want to measure this block right here, this 1-inch block. So it should be exactly 1 inch. If it's not, check the settings on your printer. I have instructions in your instructions on how to make sure that it's printing correctly if it's not at a 1 inch. And let's say if you want to resize it, if you want to change it, for example, if you want to make this a 12-inch block, in that case, just explode it by 200%, 500%. No, you want to double it, right? Yeah, 200% if you want to double it. And then so it should measure a 2-inch by 2-inch. If you want to shrink it in half, well then reduce it by 50%. And this should be a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. You can really take this and make it any size you like. If you blow it up, it's not going to all fit on a single sheet of paper. So you'll have to print it out on multiple pieces of paper and use tape to hold it all together. So keep that in mind while you're doing it. After you have your pattern printed out, then we need to pick fabric choices. So this is what I did for my first block, for my sample block, is I used a purple background with red and blue, hence why my instructions have purple, red, and blue. However, the previous block I did of this one was the regular pill block. And I did a sample video for a black background using the same red and blue. So I'm just going to use the same colors for this one, where I've got the black background and then the red and the blue for the actual pill block. And I'm looking for a pencil because I've changed these colors. I want to make sure I make a note on here. So I'm crossing off purple and I'm writing black. That way I don't confuse myself. And let's be honest, I confuse myself a lot. So anything to take away some of that confusion is going to be the best. All right, once you've got your fabric selections done, then it's time to cut. So I'm going to take a look at my paper and I'm going to go ahead and cut all of my fabrics. Once all of my fabrics are done, so I'm going to go through and cut every single one of these. Once they're all cut and we're ready to start assembling, I'm going to come back. I'm actually going to speed up the video a bit. I'm going to come back and I'll show you how to start putting the papers down and start putting the fabrics on the paper. And we have our fabrics. So I'm going to take all of these and just set them aside up here out of the way a bit and grab the paper. Now, we are going, if this is your first foundation paper piecing project, I would suggest I have a very easy triangle one It's based off the Triforce. It is a free pattern. You can download it on my website and watch the video. It's a very simplistic step-by-step explaining all the things. So I would suggest a little bit easier one before this one, but this one's pretty easy because there's no things to sew together after the fact, which I love. So we're going to start with A1 and then move to A2. Now remember, whenever you're doing a foundation paper piecing project, you're doing wrong side to wrong side. So this image right here is flipped. So here's our block and here's the image. So it's going to be mirrored. It's reversed. All right, so our A1 piece is our red piece. So with our red piece, the first thing I want to do is add a little bit of glue right in the center on the wrong side, and I'm putting that here. So I'm centering the wrong side of the fabric to the wrong side of the paper. So you can see here, you can kind of see through it a little bit. If you're having issues seeing through the paper to see where it is, you can hold it up to a light. You can use a light box. But for the most part, you should see how you can see through that. You should be able to see through that. So center that over the A1. Then flip it back over, and we're going to fold between A1 and A2. So here's our A2. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't trim this out. If you want, you can cut around this outside line. I just haven't for this one. I showed how to do that in the last one for the regular pill block. It doesn't make a difference if you do or not. So we're going to fold this along between A1 and A2. And let's trim away A2 1/4 inch from that edge. So right there is our seam allowance. So we're going to open this up, flip it back over, and we're going to take our blue piece, and I'm going to center it, line it up with our line right here, so that whenever it's sewn and we do a 1/4 inch and we open this up, it's going to completely surround that A2 piece. So the instructions that say, pin it, center it in a way to where when you're opening up this one and folding it towards it, you're completely covering it. That's what I mean, is by doing that. So at this point, you can either use some paper piecing glue and just line it up right along the edge right here, or you can use pins. I normally use pins with most of mine. I think today, let's play with some glue. So I'm going to take this glue and I'm going to line my glue up right along the edge. And then I'm going to put that down. And let's see how that glue stands up. And then that way I'm not sewing over my pins, which is a horrible habit. Don't sew over your pins. All right, so let's sew this now. Now, when you're sewing it, you want to sew at least a 1/4 inch on the outside of either edge. This locks in your stitches so that whenever you're doing the folding and manipulating and moving things around, your stitches aren't going to come undone. So I am using a 1.6 stitch length while I'm sewing. The 1.6 stitch length is extremely important because you want to have a really small stitch length. And that really perforates that paper, so it really makes it a lot easier when it's time to take that paper out. So we're going all the way down to about at least a 1/4 inch beyond. And then we want to trim it. Let's turn this over. Oh, and it looks like my glue was fine. I didn't have to worry about that. Let's go iron it. Now, when you're ironing this, the first thing you want to do is lock those stitches in. So make sure you lock that in there. I am using steam in my iron. As you see, it's curled the paper. That is perfectly natural. It's perfectly okay. You're not damaging the project or the paper. Whenever you're ironing, always iron towards the one that you've just sewn on. So in this case, we're ironing towards A2. And then there is our paper, our pieces. So now let's take a look at A3. So A3 is down here. Oh, let me trim this little thread that I didn't trim yet. So A3 is over here. So what I want to do is find A3. Now, there are a few tricks to do this. You can actually take a ruler and line it up and then perforate it and then fold it. That's one of the tricks to do it. Another one is just to eyeball it. But the perforating, the folding over and doing it that way seems to be the best way. Yep, that's it. That's good. All right, so let's cut this 1/4 inch from the edge. There we are. And now we're taking A3. And A3 is the 1 inch by 1 inch piece. So we have to line this up along the 3. So it's right here. Okay. And then if I'm folding it open, yeah, that looks pretty centered. That looks good. So it is right there. So that's the hardest part. Now I am going to use pins for this because this one's a little harder. With pins, I can take it and I can flip it over and see where those pins are. So you see I've got that lined up nicely, how I put those pins in there. And then I can fold it over and see, yep, it is surrounding that number 3. So there's 2 things I can do. I can then leave my pins in there for sewing, or I said I was going to do this one with the glue. Let's put a little glue on there. There we go. Just like that. All right, let's sew this. Oh, you know what? No, I don't want to sew it. I want to do the other side too. Let's make this efficient. So I need I'm going to do the opposite side. So we're doing A6 as well. So let me line up my ruler on that 6, perforate it, and then fold it. And then we're trimming 1/4 inch from the edge. Do the same exact thing. So I need to eyeball it. Think that's good. Let's put pins in there just to check. Oops. There we go. Yep. That's pretty centered. That surrounds the 6. So let's put some glue on there. And remember, if you want to leave those pins in, that is perfectly okay. I'm just trying something a little different to see if this works. In fact, let's put a little glue there to hold this one down as well. I'm going to put a little glue underneath to hold down those. That way it doesn't come away from the paper and it doesn't move while I'm sewing it. All right, let's go sew this now. Net to your knowledge? Okay. Well, we just really, really, really want to avoid people, period. So I may just go back to the Airbnb every night right after the vendor room. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. It all depends upon how Atlanta is in a month. Right? You know, using the glue on that, I think, is important because it started to lift up a little. And for the last one, for the red and the blue, but this isn't lifting up at all. So I like the idea of putting it in there. Now, the glue that I'm using is a water-soluble glue. It is actually an English paper piecing glue, which I perfectly like. And I think this is a lot easier not using these pins. All right, so we're sewing these at least 1/4 inch before and after And there, I'm just trimming up my threads. And let's sew the 3. Get in there. Go on. There you go. And now we'll go iron it. I'm going to be efficient and just iron them both down at the same time and then iron them back. So as you iron them, it looks really weird right now, but this is correct. So this is what gives the angles the definition for the pattern. So then we'll do the other 2. So I'm going to do the other 2 sides. I'm going to do number 4 and number 5. I'm going to speed up the video. I'm going to put them on there, sew them, iron them, come back, and then we'll take a look at those other corners, the 7 and the 10. Starting to take a little shape. All right, so now we're going to take a look at number 7. Now, I want to make sure that I show you the close-up of this one because whenever we go to fold the number 7, well, we have a seam in the way. So you see that seam that we sewed for the number 3 goes through the number 7. So how you handle that is very carefully hold the fabric with one hand and slowly peel back the paper with the other hand. Now, as you peel it back, you want to hold on to this thread. So you see the thread? So you want to make sure you hold on to that thread as you start to peel. And that is so the thread doesn't come undone and it doesn't loosen itself up. Now, I did have a little piece of paper, but it just fell out whenever I took my nails over it. If you find you have little pieces of paper while you do that, go ahead and use your tweezers in order to remove it. And of course, Tony doesn't prepare ahead of time, and I don't have my tweezers to show you. All right, well, when I come back after finishing all of this, sewing and ironing it, I'll make sure that I find my tweezers to show you because we will probably need them for the next step. Now the pill's really starting to take shape. So you see how by using those different angles, you can get the effect that you want in the design. Now, something I did notice this is the first time I'm using water-soluble glue for every single step and not just the first. So you see there's a little bit of glue poking through right there. That's because I wasn't really careful when I was applying it for putting those together. But that's perfectly fine. That means that I just have to wash this block in order to get the glue out. So it's not a problem at all. You can easily wash that in order to remove that. Even if it's just a spot clean, just a spot spray of water and do this and then iron it and it'll be gone. So getting that out's not a big deal. All right, so now that we've done the other 2, I'm going to do the other sides. So I'm going to go ahead and do number 8 and number 9. I will then sew them, iron them, come back, and show you the results. So I'm stopping the video to show you something I've discovered. Remember I said this is the first time I was using water-soluble glue for every single step? It is really, really hard for me to get the paper completely removed. Normally that paper comes right off, but you see here because of the glue, the paper's like, nope, nope, I'm staying right here. Nope, this is it. So from here on end, that's going to be my last one that I'm doing with just glue. I'm using pins from now on, which is back to what I was used to. I was hoping to try to, figure something else out, but unfortunately, no, I'm going to have to use pins. So, but that's what happens with sewing, right? We experiment, we figure things out. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And that's okay. So let's go ahead and finish off the rest of these, sew them, iron them, and then I will come back and show you 11 and 12 and my tweezers. All right, let's do our A11 and our A12. So at this point, we want to fold back this area right here. It's the same as we were doing before, though. You want to make sure that you fold these back. Now, I talked about my favorite tweezers. These are my favorite tweezers. They are Famore 507s because it's got the angled head and the super sharp edges. So for foundation paper piecing, it's really easy to get in there and get the paper out of there. So you see here, it's torn. That is natural and okay. I'm just going to get my tweezers in there and finish pulling it out so that I can then fold right here. So I'm going to fold this over here. And this little piece of fabric that's hanging there, we'll take that and then fold that in as well. It doesn't have to be connected as long as it's folded over, because we just need it folded so that we can cut our straight edge, so that we have our line that we're going to cut. All right, so this is going to be our A11. So I'm going to center this. Now this one's pretty easy because you can see your lines coming out here. So you can just center it over there. This is the 2.5 inch one that I am lining up with this side. Everything until now has been in a square. We haven't had to deal with rectangles yet. So it didn't make a difference which side we used. But this one does. Oh, I forgot to show you. And then if you sew the 1/4 inch and then move it away, you see how it covers the entire thing. Because this outer line is going to be our cut line. Okay, so let me go ahead and pin this. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. So let's move to our A12. I'm going to hold on to my fabric as I pull away. Wow, this does not like me today. It really wants to hold on to that paper. Come on, paper. There we are. Oh, I see the problem. So what was happening here is this piece of thread right here, this lovely piece, was getting caught up in the paper and it didn't want to release it. Just keep slowly working at it. Don't force anything. If you force it, you're going to rip something, and you really don't want to rip something. So just very gently work it away until it all lays down, and then we can trim our seam allowance. And that stubborn thread has gone away. I cut it away. All right, open all that up. Same exact thing. This is the 2.5 inch. And I'm lining it up between these two lines, pinning it. And we're going to go sew that the exact same way. So I'm going to speed up the video because you know how to sew and iron by now. And I'm just sewing it along the lines right here and right here. We are on our last two pieces. Now, for the diagonal one, we're going to try to do them both at the same time, but I don't remember if we can or not. Same exact thing as we did with the A11 and A12. We want to take our paper, hold our fabric, and pull that paper away from the fabric and from those threads. Come on. There we go. All the way. Keep going. Keep going. I'm going to wrinkle the paper up just a touch. This one's a little harder because it is so in there. But eventually you will get it. All right, so we've got this whole thing. So I'm going to take my ruler. And this one's a little harder because of where it is. And then I'm going to just pop this up. Now make sure that you pull the paper away from the fabric and the thread before you put the ruler down to fold it, because you do not want to have to try to pull it up as you're doing that. It's a little harder, trust me. I may have done that. All right, and we've got that. Now, I'm going to actually do the next side because I'm going to try to do them both at the same time. So before I add my fabric to this, I'm just going to go ahead and pull the fabric and the thread away from the paper on this side as well, and go ahead and just trim this side. Even if I can't do them both right now, it's still one step that I can have finished. And remember, take your time while you're doing this. If you need to, you can get your tweezers and you can get in there to help pull that paper away without ripping it. Because the moment that you rip that paper, it's going to be a little bit harder. Now, if you do rip the paper, so if you're like, Tony, oh no, I've ripped this paper, what do I do? Add tape. I'm dead serious. Scotch tape. Just put some Scotch tape on this side of the paper to hold it down. I have not yet made the tutorials for the more complicated patterns. So the portable gaming. I have 2 portable gaming patterns that are coming out. And both of those, when I was designing them, I had the problem of actually ripping the paper because there's so many small little intricate pieces that I ripped the paper, and I'm like, well, what do I do now? Do I have to start over? So I played around with tape, and I discovered Scotch tape, when you have your setting at a 1.6 stitch length, it perforates the Scotch tape enough to where you can remove it. So if you're having issues, if you rip your pattern, if any of that happens, use some Scotch tape. It is awesome. All right, there we are. Our pill is starting to take shape. So now I'm going to lay this down here. Now I'm going to center this. So you see the edges here and here as you're doing it. So move it around and center. You know what? I'm not going to be able to do it. I am not going to be able to do them both at the same time. But that's okay. I've already cleared away this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish pinning this. I'm going to sew it, and I'll show you how I'm going to sew it over here in a moment. After I sew it, we'll iron it. I will then do the other side. I'm going to keep speeding it up because I'm showing you this side. The other side's the exact same thing. So then I'll do the other side. I'll sew it, iron it, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to take the paper out. So here is our piece. When I sew it, remember, 1/4 inch before and after. So I'm going to start all the way out here, come all the way through here, and then go until right there. Now, if you have cut this out, you may want to use a piece of scrap fabric in your sewing machine as a leader and ender. It is what's called chain piecing. I've put a video down below if you haven't chain pieced before. But in this case, if you've cut it out, then you don't have enough paper out here, so you want to take advantage of some chain piecing. All right, let's sew this. And there's our pill block. We're done, right? Almost. Now we have to cut along our lines. So at this point, get your straight edge and your paper rotary cutter. I have 2 different rotary cutters, one for fabric and one for paper. Because if you actually use your paper rotary, if you use your fabric rotary cutter on paper, it's going to dull it, and you do not want that to happen. So now at this point, we're going to trim along these lines, which is also squaring our block up to 6.5 inches. So if you want, you can actually square to the 6.5. Ooh, 6.5 is actually a little bit bigger. I should have gone a little bit wider than my lines. I apparently cut too far into my line. So I'm just going to measure 6.5 and then cut it. There we are. Because it doesn't make a difference what it's like on that side. It just makes a difference of what it's like on this side. So now our block is finished. And it complements our regular pill block so that we can create a quilt of all pill blocks if we want. Now, I also created a block of a syringe, and a pill bottle is coming. I'm very excited about that. All right, so let's take our paper out. So at this point now, you just fold and pull. And the paper comes right out. Now you notice how when I folded and pulled, there's little bits of paper in there? That's fine. That's what your tweezers are for. So just grab your tweezers and pull that paper out and get everything. So go ahead and grab all of your paper, pull all of that out. There we are. And the nice thing about the tweezers as well is you can actually get in there. So let's say this number 9, I can get in there to grab that to pull that out. So a good pair of tweezers is everything. So just get all of this paper out. I'm not going to be super, super careful and get it out because remember I was having the issues with the glue as you see here. So I've actually got to rinse this block in water to make sure I get all of this glue and this paper out. And then I can probably pull the rest of this paper out. But do not take this block and put it into a quilt or other design until you've gotten all of the paper removed. And there's a pill block. And that is our diagonal pill block. Hopefully you learned something today, how to make a diagonal pill block. Hopefully, maybe. Don't forget to like this video, follow my YouTube as well as Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Don't forget about my Quite Nerdy Quilters Facebook group. I tell them everything there first. I also have a Pinterest, which I never use, a TikTok, which I forget to update, but I do mostly on my foster dogs, and Twitch. I also stream live on both Twitch and YouTube, so make sure you check out my social media for my schedule. Thank you again. Have a wonderful day.